Hi guys, I'm super excited to be here. Actually, not really, I'm super nervous. And really well done to everyone that standed up here and actually did your talks, especially if you felt as nervous as me. But anyway, I'm super excited to share my talk with you guys today, especially because I think that we're living through one of the most interesting times in history. Not only are we navigating our lives through a pandemic, but we're also actively fighting climate change and becoming increasingly aware about the rise of mental illness within our society. And even in a year where we have been exposed to so many different epidemics, researchers keep turning back to one epidemic in particular, and that's the epidemic of loneliness. Loneliness is the twist of the knife behind so many societal ills, from depression to addiction to violence, and it can be as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. One study found that about 36% of Americans find it hard to either make friends, or really hard to make friends. And loneliness is such a severe global problem that both Britain and Japan appointed ministers of loneliness in recent years. Something that troubles me deeply is the fact that millennials and Gen Z have officially been identified as the loneliest generation with the fewest social relationships yet. In fact, young adults between the ages of 18 and 22 are reported as being the biggest sufferers of loneliness. So why are our younger generations experiencing such a lack of human connection? Well, researchers have been pointing to social media as being one of the biggest culprits that affects the way we connect with people face to face. And even though social media has connected us to more people than ever, the deepness and authenticity of these connections are questionable. Multiple studies have found a strong link between the heavy use of social media and an increased risk for depression, anxiety, loneliness, self-harm, and even suicidal thoughts. And I'm sure that a lot of us sitting in this room have been affected negatively by social media in one way or another. Maybe not as severely as developing depression or anxiety, but we might know of someone that's had to give up social media completely because of the negative impact it's had on their mental health. And this is because social media encourages negative experiences. We might experience feelings of inadequacy about our own lives. And this is because we tend to see the most bold, beautiful, and extravagant moments shared on people's social media pages. And I think that we're well aware of this, but it still increases our feelings of envy and dissatisfaction that we feel towards our own lives. We might also experience FOMO, the fear of missing out, especially when we see Instagram stories of our friends out jolling or having a fun day on the beach when we're sitting home alone. This feeling of missing out can make us feel anxious and disconnected from our friends who are having a seemingly better time than we are. Oops. And it's not only people who scroll through social media that gets affected, but people who are posting often are also affected. Users who spend more hours on perfecting their makeup, outfits, and looks for their next Instagram post can develop an unhealthy sense of self-centeredness, and that can distance them from their real-life connections. I think that the overuse of social media can be like mental junk food. It seems like one of the easiest ways and most convenient ways to stay in touch with friends, but if we consume too much content, it will deprive us from forming meaningful connections in real life. And I don't think that we should stop using social media, but instead, I think we should find a solution to the root of the problem and teach millennials and Gen Z to not only prioritize human connections, but teach them how they can form these human connections face-to-face as well. And something that I think is completely underrated, but can heal so many lonely hearts, is the act of sharing a meal. I'm sure that a lot of us in this room have sat around a dinner table with our families and friends sharing a meal. And a lot of these memories have become some of our most cherished memories. And this might seem like a completely normal thing to us, But in reality, sharing a meal is something completely unique to the human experience. To us, food is more than survival. With it, we make friends, court lovers, and count our blessings. Now, our social bonding over food developed from using food sharing as a survival skill. And to help me demonstrate this, I would like to turn back the clock 50,000 years ago and make us all part of the same hunter-gatherer tribe. In our hunter and gatherer tribe, we'll spend our days hunting and gathering food to sustain ourselves. And every single one of us in the tribe has a responsibility to ensure that we survive at the end of the day. Now, hunting and gathering requires a lot of skill, and it's really not an easy job to get done. Most days, our hunters turn up empty-handed, and our gatherers do so as well. But let's suppose that today is our lucky day. Our hunters return with a kudu big enough to feed a tribe twice our size, and our gatherers return with enough fruit that would make a tribe of monkeys jealous. As a tribe, we'll have to try and consume all of this food to sustain ourselves until our next lucky day when we find a food surplus. And anthropologists believe that this is how we started sharing food to strengthen our social bonds in the first place, not only with our own tribes, but with neighboring tribes that would have to help us in days where there's food scarcity. Now, fast forward back into our modern society, and we'll still see that we continue to bond over food. I mean, Christmas is around the corner, and I'm already super excited to help my mom in the kitchen to make pampoen cookies, or to sit around the table with my family, bonding with them, and eating until I feel nauseated. It's also really cool to see what's happening in our brains when we're bonding with someone. When we're sitting next to someone or across from someone, telling stories, connecting, or just reconnecting with them, our brain releases endogenous opioids, which can help relieve pain. It also releases oxytocin, which causes feelings of well-being. These neurochemicals help us feel calmer, it can help us improve our social interactions, it decreases our fear levels, and it increases the level of trust that we feel when we connect with someone. Now, preparing and sharing a meal gives us enough time to experience these effects to their full potential. Something that's also cool is the fact that memories formed while eating are usually really vivid. Just smelling or tasting certain foods might resurface a memory from your past. These memories also tend to feel super nostalgic. And this is because in the context of when you were preparing or eating this food in the past, it becomes almost symbolic of something else completely. So something that always raises memories for me is French toast. But French toast eaten with tomato sauce specifically. I know a lot of people hate that, and I get a lot of judgment for it. But honestly, it's one of my favorite things to eat because it almost resurfaces those feelings of feeling nourished and deeply loved in my childhood home. Food memories are so evocative because we use all 5 senses when we form them. The more senses are involved in a moment, the more vivid the memory will become. And this is because we're giving our brain more layers to work with so that it can ingrain that moment into your brain. So not only is our brain utilizing our senses to form a vivid memory when we're eating food, but our neurochemicals are making sure that this specific memory will be recalled with a feeling of warmth when we decide to connect with someone over a meal. I think it's absolutely amazing how connected we feel when we share a meal with someone. It's one of the most primal and wholesome ways to experience human connection. And I know that a lot of us sitting in this room will embark on new journeys next year. Most of us will start a new job, some of us will move to a new city or a new country, and maybe some of us will have friends that are moving away for good. I think that a lot of us will experience some lonely times next year where we feel like we have a lack of human connection. And that's when I hope you remember that sharing a meal with someone brings so much joy into our lives, and nothing, not a conversation, not a handshake, or even a hug, establishes a friendship so forcefully as eating together. Thank you.